Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where today we have a genuine variety of stories. So I think there will surely be something for everyone. Now we're actually going to start with the smallest story of the day, but one that I think is very important and that I feel very strongly about, and that's women's salaries in Hollywood, because this is an important conversation, but also a conversation that I think is getting a little bit out of hand. We've talked about it before when Jennifer Lawrence first published her essay on unfair salaries in Lenny magazine, but there have been some new developments that a couple of you actually tweeted me about, so I thought it was worth a second look. And also there's a genuine headline here about Amy Schumer. So anyway, what are some of the recent developments? Well, as I said when I first reported this, I was a little annoyed that Gwyneth Paltrow was trying to jump on the bandwagon and say, why aren't I paid what Robert Downey Jr. is paid for the Iron Man movies? And when you hear that, you're like, that's like one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Way to cloud the issue, Gwyneth Paltrow, and to make it seem ridiculous when it's not. And so another person has decided to join Gwyneth Paltrow in her ranks of ridiculousness, and that's Jessica Chastain. And I was absolutely shocked at this, but Jessica Chastain was speaking recently, I believe like on the Today Show or something, and of course, as is the norm now, whenever any female actress is being interviewed, apparently she has to be asked about how she feels about pay inequality in Hollywood. So you would think that Jessica Chastain, of all people, would have a really good response prepared, but instead, she said that she felt it was unfair that she was paid only around $2 million for her role in The Martian, whereas Matt Damon was paid like $20 million or something like that. And it's like, seriously, Jessica Chastain, have you seen the movie? Have you seen how small your part is in correlation to Matt Damon's? Do you see who is the draw of the movie and who is in most of the movie, whereas you probably only had like a few days of shooting, and you think that your salary should be anywhere close to his? It's like one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. I think it's ridiculous that Jessica Chastain was paid 2.5 or 2, whatever it was, anywhere in the $2 million range for essentially a couple of days' work when she's clearly not a box office draw. I mean, I know she's been Oscar nominated, so good for her, but still, she should just be happy that she's getting an obscene amount of money for her star wattage at this point in her career. So I thought that was an absolutely ridiculous development. And it's frustrating to me because I think it makes the argument seem as a whole ridiculous when it's not. Now also, someone tweeted me and they said, what did you think about what Jeremy Renner said? And I was like, Jeremy Renner said something again? So I looked it up, and apparently Bradley Cooper has said he will help women negotiate their salaries. It's like, really? Bradley Cooper? That's like, see, I can't even speak. It's so ridiculous. That is such a ridiculous and like kind of condescending comment to make. Like, Bradley Cooper, any woman who's in negotiations for millions of dollars as a payday has representation, and it's her representation's job to do that. Bradley Cooper is going to become a mediator between women and their representatives and the studios. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And he's such a powerful negotiator, and being a guy, he's going to come in there and make the studios, feel differently about how they should pay actresses. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I actually agree with Jeremy Renner, who was like, and this is why he was in the news, and I think it's ridiculous he was in the news for this. This is just has to do with the news cycle and them always needing something, especially, print sites that need stuff like pretty much a constant flow. So he said, I don't know how to negotiate contracts. I have a team of people who do that for me. It's not my responsibility to help actresses or even myself negotiate salaries. I'm just going to focus on what I do best, and that's my craft of acting. So kudos to Jeremy Renner for saying what is obvious, and I don't think actors should be helping to negotiate other actors' salaries. That's absolutely ridiculous. That's not how negotiations are done, and this isn't a charity either. And also, I think it puts kind of a pall on the whole situation that women need help negotiating. No, they just need to get over, as Jennifer Lawrence, I think, so eloquently stated, the need to be seen as nice, right? And I know it's a little bit of a pain because women who are really aggressive in negotiations are often viewed not so nicely, whereas men are often, viewed in a much better light or a begrudgingly positive light, right? Like, oh, you got me, you good negotiator, instead of, some of the bad words that are used to describe women who also try to be strong negotiators. But there's going to have to be a wave of women who just takes the hit to kind of break this stereotype. But anyway, Amy Schumer's in the news, and I was a little bit annoyed about how this was reported as well. Because someone said to me, do you think Amy Schumer is worth $10 million? And I was like, someone paid Amy Schumer $10 million for something? And then actually someone did. Her book deal at Simon & Schuster is said to be worth, it's rumored to be worth, because it hasn't been released, $9 million. She got $1 million up front. But so I looked this up and I was like, what is this person talking about who tweeted me? And the actual situation is that Amy Schumer was her new team. She has new representation, and they went to Universal and they said, we want $10 million for her to star in her next picture for you, Mother-Daughter. That's about the mother and daughter who go to South America and get kidnapped and have to escape, right? It's like action comedy, very romancing the stone. I think it has a lot of potential. But anyway, I think it's pretty clear, and she ended up getting somewhere between $4 and $5 million for the role, which I think sounds about right for Amy Schumer at this point in her career, especially considering, well, we'll talk about Trainwreck in a minute. But still, the $10 million was the opening salvo from her representation, and that's how negotiation works. See? Bradley Cooper didn't need to step in there. Amy Schumer's team knew how to do it. You ask for a much higher amount, and then you know that it's going to settle somewhere, hopefully closer to where you went, but here they got a little less than half of what they asked for. But I was really surprised to see the $10 million number reported, because I've never seen what a male actor asked for in the initial round of negotiations reported. So that was really surprising, because this is standard negotiation tactics. And if you don't know that, hopefully you learned something today, but this is standard negotiation tactics. And instead it's been made to look like she didn't get what she wanted, right? Like that's what they actually genuinely expected to get. And so it's turned into a negative. And so I was really surprised at that. But let's talk about Trainwreck and why Amy Schumer does deserve $4 to $5 million for her follow-up. Well, she was paid $300,000 for Trainwreck, which is pretty low in the movie business for a star. And that's, don't forget, that's not only to star in the thing, but to write it. So $300,000, I think, seems pretty reasonable. And at that point, she already had a very successful show on Comedy Central. So I think that was reasonable. Now, Trainwreck cost $35 million to make, and it went on to make $110 million domestic, and then it got let's see here, $28 million overseas, so $138 total. So that's really good. That's an excellent return for that movie. So I think Amy Schumer definitely showed that she can perform. We'll see how she does long term. Her SNL ratings were low, but I think she's certainly in a very good place in her career right now. I think she generates headlines, and I think it's worth it to Universal for $4 to $5 million to say they have the next Amy Schumer comedy. I mean, she gets a lot of press. She's very good at doing press. She has the HBO special that just went up, although the way they describe it, they said well reviewed. So far, it has not said very well watched. So I don't know how long the Amy Schumer craze is going to last, but I think it's definitely in full flux right now. And when you're in full flux, you get the big paychecks. So congratulations to her. And I was just really surprised the way the whole story was handled. So I'm curious, what do you think of how this conversation is evolving? Where do you stand on it? I know that some of you say, oh, well, these salaries are ridiculous, period. Well, you know what? I think at the end of the day, this is the game. It's like, don't hate the player, hate the game. And so if someone's being paid this amount of money, it only stands to reason that people, of the opposite sex who are at the same levels in their career, and I stress that, should be paid the same amount. I always believe in a meritocracy in every single area, period. And so I think that's really, that's what's going on here. That's where I stand on it. All right, so that's the first story of the day. Now let's get to the bigger stories. The next one, is that Chris Rock is going to return to host the Oscars for time number 2. As you might recall, he hosted the Oscars in 2005, and it was contentious. We'll get to that in a moment. But it's not too surprising a choice, considering that one of the producers of this telecast is Reginald Hudlin, and he directed the pilot for Everybody Loves Chris Rock's sitcom on the CW. So, and also Reginald Hudlin is very involved in the black filmmaking and just the black entertainment business overall. I believe he's even worked at BET. So I think that's a difficult situation. I think we're getting to a point where we want to see people work with, not stick to their categories, right? Women, men, different ethnicities. Everybody wants to mix it up. But I think that, Reginald Hudlin was in a difficult spot, because if he didn't pick a black host, I think he would have got called out for that as well. Now, I think luckily, Chris Rock is just a great host. Now, the reason he hasn't been asked back to host the Oscars is because, as you might recall, he was really difficult the last time he was there. I mean, he pulled a Ricky Gervais, and while it worked for Ricky Gervais, it didn't work so well for Chris Rock at the Oscars, because the Oscars are a different animal, and they're just seen a little bit differently. I think he was most infamous for ruining Jude Law's career and saying, saying, if you can't afford Tom Cruise, just go in a different direction. Don't get the cheap Tom Cruise, Jude Law. And that really hurt Jude Law's career. And only recently has he been able to really come back from that by, really breaking the mold on the kind of roles that he takes. So he had to really break that mold very severely for a while there, like with roles like his Steven Soderbergh's Contagion, where he played like a snaggletooth internet reporter, Road to Perdition. I think that was actually around the time of the Chris Rock situation, actually, though. But still, and I think Jude Law probably always wanted to do that. But being named the cheap Tom Cruise really hurt his career and set him back. So, but I think that it's interesting that Reginald Hudlin is said in his comment, that he released to the press when they made it official that Chris Rock would be returning, was that they're courting the danger. They want edge. They want the audience not to know what's going to happen. So I think they are trying to go in the direction of Ricky Gervais a little bit. And Ricky Gervais is probably like, why didn't you ask me to host the Oscars? So I think it's very interesting. I think Chris Rock will do a very good job. I love Chris Rock's comedy. I think he's very funny. And I'll be curious to see how far he goes off the deep end, and if he really, how are they going to balance the need for strong ratings and shaking this thing up, and also still appealing to the Academy and the industry and not making people feel they went too far. So I think it's already an interesting Oscars because of this, so I'm very curious to see how this develops. As I said, the other producer was involved at Fox Sports for a while, so I want that graphics package from Fox Super Bowl games applied to the Oscars. I think that would be awesome. And as some of you joked, Cletus can come out and he can, give an Oscar to someone. I love Cletus. Every time he's not at the Super Bowl, I think the Super Bowl lacks a little magic. All right, so the third story of the day is about Monster High, which is finally coming to the big screen as a live-action movie. Now, Monster High is a very popular brand at Mattel, and it's a $1 billion franchise at this point, so it rivals the Disney Princess brand. Now, I've mentioned Monster High before because I feel that the way they redid Suicide Squad's Harley Quinn for the movie, played by Margot Robbie, takes a lot of cues from properties like Monster High. And I think also so does the Disney Channel's The Descendants, which was a huge hit. Someone asked me to talk about this recently. They've greenlit The Descendants 2, and they have novelizations that are very popular, and merchandise, and an animated series. So The Descendants is quickly becoming a big franchise for Disney itself. Now that, of course, is a television movie that airs on the Disney Channel. So Monster High is at Universal, and that's going to be on the big screen. And it makes one wonder if maybe Disney will feel they might have missed an opportunity not taking The Descendants to the big screen, and perhaps maybe they'll move the sequel to the big screen, or the third film like they did with High School Musical that'll eventually make the leap to the silver screen itself. Monster High and The Descendants are kind of in the same area, so they're going to end up competing with each other. So it'll be interesting to see if who's the winner there, how that shakes out. But the reason that the Monster High movie is in the news is that it's moving forward quickly now, and they've hired a director, and it's Ari Sandel who directed The Duff, which was really a fantastic little movie. Jimmy Fallon actually talked about it when he hurt his finger recently. He said he watched The Duff constantly when he was recuperating in the hospital, and whenever anybody came into his hospital room, he was like, "Have you seen The Duff? It's really good." And it is very good. It stars Robbie Amell and Mae Whitman. They're very, very good. Bella Thorne is in it as well. But really a great high school comedy. I really loved it. I had a smile on my face most of the time I was watching it. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. So I think he's a great choice for this. It gives me even more confidence in the film. But I think this is a strong brand. I've seen some people in the comment sections for articles on this say stuff like, "Oh, this is too late," etc., etc. I don't think so. I think that Monster High, if cast correctly and made correctly, could be a very, very big hit. I mean, just look at The Descendants. I think that Monster High is in a really good position. All right, so that's the third story of the day. Now let's go to the viewer question, which is from BTT viewer Eli Mason. And Eli says, "Grace, I have a question. We've seen trailers for all these great upcoming films, Star Wars, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, etc. But we have yet to see a real trailer for X-Men Apocalypse or Captain America Civil War. Why is this? Why have they released Suicide Squad's trailer when it's farther away than X-Men or Cap? Thanks so much. I love your show and tune in every day. I don't know what I'd do with that morning movie news." And then Eli wrote out smile emoticon. So I thought that was great. So as for your question, Eli, I think it's a great one, and those are definitely two hotly anticipated trailers. People had felt that X-Men Apocalypse would play in front of The Martian, and perhaps it was meant to. We'll get to that in a moment. And also Captain America Civil War, of course, they played something 2 comic book conventions now, but they have not yet released the trailer to the public. Now this is what I think is going on. But first, before we get into that, I want to address the Suicide Squad comment. The Suicide Squad trailer was from Comic-Con was never supposed to see the light of day to the general public. But because it's so highly anticipated and in such demand, it leaked. It leaked from Comic-Con, and Warner Brothers worked like crazy to take it down. They were so aggressive trying to take it off the internet, but they could not. And they felt that it was being shown in subpar quality, and so they were like, we better just get it out there and get out in front of this because the genie's out of the bottle. So that's why the Suicide Squad trailer was released. And make no mistake about it, Warner Brothers was plenty ticked off about that because they felt that they didn't quite put their best foot forward. It did so incredibly well. I don't think there's anything negative to come out of the first trailer. I think I can see what they're talking about. I think it wasn't quite as amazing as I think we probably would have wanted, and also that the Warner Brothers would have wanted. But again, the response to it was so spectacular, and there were enough good things in it that I think it was a success for Warner Brothers all around. But that's why the Suicide Squad trailer is out. It was not supposed to ever be released, and I think we'll see how that affects Comic-Cons in the future. But anyway, that's why Suicide Squad trailer is out. But the reason that Captain America Civil War's trailer isn't out is that Disney has to prioritize. And they're really working hard right now to sell Star Wars tickets. They really need Star Wars to perform. As we discussed yesterday, it's a bit of a hurdle to get to over the $1.6 billion that Jurassic World has already earned this year, and it's going to be tough. Some of you also pointed out after my discussion yesterday that even more further adding to the problems with Star Wars is that it's a holiday release, and it's hard for a December movie to do that well because there's the holiday season. People have other things they're doing, including shopping, being with family. There's a lot of award contenders coming out. Then we're going to get into award season, and that's going to soak up a lot of air in the room. So it's not quite like a summer movie. And that's why I think with Episode 8, the main Star Wars movies are going back to May, because I think they realize that they've kind of put themselves in a difficult position. So yes, Disney really is all hands on deck right now to promote Star Wars. So I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see a Captain America Civil War trailer until Star Wars comes out. I think that's very, very possible. It's getting very close. And so I think that would be an even better way to, build the hype for that release. Then as for X-Men Apocalypse, as I said, I think there maybe was a chance there was supposed to be something in front of The Martian, but as we've noticed recently, Bryan Singer decided to change the look of Apocalypse because people were so upset with the way that he made him look. So that, I'm sure, involves a lot of post-production work because they'd pretty much wrapped the film already, right? So he has to go in and change all the Apocalypse shots. So I think that's probably one of the reasons you haven't seen an X-Men Apocalypse trailer yet. Also, I think they don't want to take too much attention off of Deadpool. Deadpool is a very important release, so don't be surprised. I think that you might see an X-Men Apocalypse trailer before February because that's getting pretty close to the X-Men Apocalypse release. But I bet you probably see the first full trailer actually in front of Deadpool because, of course, that's the same cinematic universe, same brand, same studio. And so I think that's, you're seeing studios be so aggressive and have so many things they need to promote. They really do have to be strategic in when they promote what movie so as not to drown out their own entries. All right, so that's my answer to your question, Eli. I hope that it clarified things a little bit. Thank you so much for such a great question and the writing out smile emoticon. I thought that was very clever. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please be sure to write down what you think of today's top 3 stories and that viewer question. What are your thoughts on that yourself? And then let me know what you'd like to see covered tomorrow and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.